In this video, I will show you how I assemble the high pantry cabinets by myself. It clearly says in the instruction that comes with the cabinets that you need to be 2 people to do it. But since I work alone, I had to figure out a way to do it on my own, and how I do it is what I will show you in this video. There's a lot of the assembly that is the exact same as it is with all the other section cabinets. So I will fast forward those bits so you don't sit there and just watch me do stuff you know how to do already. Okay, let's get started. As you can see, I'm unpacking like I normally do. I open up the box, which is basically the most difficult part sometimes. And then I start assembling whatever comes out of the box, top down. In this case, that means I will put in the wooden dowels and those twist locks into the bottom and the top of the cabinet. The first bit is one of the gables, so I just flip that over so we got the side with all the holes up. And then I start putting in the twist locks and the wooden pegs. When this is done, I put away that shelf that comes with a high cabinet. We will install that in a minute when the cabinet box has been assembled. As you can see, I will remove the back part of the cabinet as well, so I get room to put down the other gable of the cabinet. Yeah, let's get those screws out of the way and make room. Now I am checking out this gable where we have that long groove for the back part, because I want that to be to the outer side. It's important that you put those 2 gables down so they are opposite. If they're not opposite, the cabinet will not come together. As you can see here, I have one groove for the back part right there on this, and the other one on the other side. So these 2 are lying down opposite. Now I can put in the stud bolts that will be used to hold the cabinet together. Before I do the other end with those stud bolts, I just look at the cabinet and then I see which way I want to be up on the cabinet. I want to be up there in this end of this cabinet, because where the other red arrow is pointing is where the cabinet eventually will be installed. So by having the upper part of the cabinet at the end where I'm sitting, I can lift it up and it will be practically right in front of where I need to hang it. So I don't have to move it all the way across the floor if I lifted it up the opposite way. So that's why I'm putting on the bracket on which the cabinet will be hanging at that end. And when that is done, I can move to the other end and put the stud bolt in, just like I did at the top end. The last thing I want to do before I assemble the cabinet is to put in those small pegs on which the built-in shelf will be sitting. And I want to put that at the right height. In this case, this cabinet has 2 15-inch drawers at the bottom. So 30 inches from the bottom of the cabinet is a good place to put that shelf, because I know that will be a firmly mounted shelf that not need to be moved around when the cabinet is finished. So what I will do is I will take my measuring tape and I will measure 30 inches from the bottom of the cabinet, which is where the upper door and the drawers will meet, and I will put in those small pegs on which the shelf will be resting. When this is done, it's time to put on the top and the bottom of the cabinet, and that is standard procedure as well. So you know what is going to happen. You just put the part on so it sits in the right direction, and you twist those little twist locks. First one end and then the other. When this is done, it's time to put on the back of the cabinet, and you just turn it in the right direction with the white surface pointing inwards, of course, and then you just slide it into the groove and make sure it rests on both sides and on at the bottom as well. Here we go. You can give it a little swing. Shake it a bit, and it will fall down and sit in the right position. Now comes that bit where you can benefit from being two people. But as I said in the introduction, I work alone, so I had to figure out a way to do it. So what I do is I sit down on my knees on the open side of the cabinet, and I focus on just getting that one first peg in and that hole. It can be a bit of a challenge to hold that gable. If you are a small person, you might struggle with this. And then when the first is in, you go for the next one. It's important that you lift it up at an angle so you don't kind of break those 3 pegs. And you don't let go at that point in time. You need to look at the other end first to make sure that it's not falling, that the gable is not being pushed away from the cabinet, and then you lower it. So those 3 stock screws are falling into the holes as well with the wooden pegs. When that is done, you have to look to see if the back panel is falling into the groove. It might need a little bit of massage, either from the inside or from the outside, or both. And then when you see it's positioned really well, you can feel it with your finger. You can see how I'm pushing on it there with my fingers, so it will fall in, and then you know that the gable will fall into parts, and you can into place, and you can twist those lock nuts again. Remember to do both ends. And now the cabinet is all secured. What you want to do next is you want to put in that shelf, because that will help stabilize the cabinet when you turn it 90 degrees to nail the backside of the cabinet. Because those pegs, they have a grip on that shelf, it will hold the cabinet together. So it's important you put in that shelf at this point in time, because when that's done, you can grab the cabinet like you will see me doing in a second here, just like that, and then get out of the way and put it down. If you didn't have that shelf in, what will happen is that those 2 gables will move apart, and the backside of the cabinet will either fall in or fall out of the groove again, and you really don't want that to happen. So it's important you put in that shelf. Now it's time to put in the nails, and that is a standard procedure as well. So let's do that. It's a good idea to start with some nails on the middle, at the middle of the cabinet, and then you make sure that you kind of pull those 2 gables towards each other, so it's not barrel shaped, the cabinet. You don't have to worry about it being square in the corners, because it's a very stiff cabinet, when it's this big. So you don't need a square and you don't need to pull on the back. Just put some nails in it with a 6-8 inches between each nail. Make sure not to point them inwards into the cabinet, because we don't want to see them on the inside, right? What you want to do now is take your measuring tape and then measure 30 inches from the bottom of the cabinet, because that's where that shelf is sitting on the other side. If you put the shelves at a different height, because it depends on what size of the door and the drawers you have and where you put that shelf, you need to make sure that you make a line exactly where the shelf is sitting. But in my case, it was 30 inches. So I make a line, and I will show you in a minute why I do that. But before we get to that, we have to put on the base of the legs. I always put the base of the legs on any cabinet with legs before I hang it on the rail. It's much easier because those bases can be a bit difficult to get into place. So I like to do that when the cabinet is on the side like it is now. I assemble all 4 legs, and then I simply take those 4 bases and put at the bottom of the cabinet. When that is done, we're ready to raise the cabinet up to vertical. And you simply do it like I'm showing you here. And now I have to apologize for not having the camera showing everything. But I didn't realize. But that's not important, because what's important is that you give a little knock on that shelf so it's sitting all the way down on the pegs, so you know it's in the exact right position. And now you go grab your hammer and a few nails that you left over from nailing the back of the cabinet, and now you can put a nail in those 3 spots that you marked on the back. Put it in perpendicular to the back of the cabinet, so you make sure it goes into the shelf and not poke out next to it. And why we're doing this is because now the back will also be fastened to the shelf in the cabinet, and it will look much nicer when you open the door, that you don't have that back of the cabinet kind of, flopping away from that shelf. Now you move the cabinet over to where you want to hang it. You might have to walk it a bit on the floor. What I'm doing here is what you cannot see, but I'm making a bit of room because I got the fridge cabinet sitting next to it. And now I have to squeeze it in. I don't have much room, but I can manage to get it in there. It can be a bit of a hassle. If you have finished floor in your kitchen already, make sure that you don't damage the floors. You can put some cardboard in that corner before you do. And the trick to get the cabinet up on the rail is to bend in your knees, bend in your legs, go down and lift with your legs. And the good thing is you can see from the inside of the cabinet if the bracket is hanging on the rail before you let go. You only need to have one hanging at the time, first one of the brackets and then the other, and then you can let go. And now the cabinet is hanging on the rail. What you want to do now is you want to take 2 legs and put at the front of the cabinet. And you take your level, so you make sure that the cabinet is vertical at the front and on the side as well. And since the base of the legs have been installed already, it's so easy to put the leg in and screw on it to extend the leg. And in this case, I'm lifting on the cabinet. I swing it away a bit from the wall, which you might see I did just there, and then I use my level to see, is it plumb? If it's not plumb, I adjust a bit check again. Is it okay? No, it needs a tiny bit more. Here we go. Is that better? Not quite. There we go. And the other one needs a tiny bit too. And just to make sure that it's also plumb on the side of the cabinet, you just check that as well.